when a 14-year-old, at the time, perceives that she's being touched by somebody, the other person says, yeah, no, that's not what happened. One of them is not telling the truth. Do you understand?
Sure, but we've also seen instances where these kinds of allegations are made and they fall apart later. My law professor at Harvard, Allan Dershowitz, was accused of having underage sex with a woman on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane, and he vigorously denied it, and he challenged
Both sides were not credible there either. Dershowitz was credible.
Well,
the other side was BS. That's why it went away.
Well, if you look at the media coverage at the time, there were certainly many outlets who credited her accusation based on the principle that we should always believe what the accuser says. There are often sides that are credible, and you have to decide which one is conclusive. That's what juries have to do in court cases. And
there will be no jury here, though.
Alabama.
That's why it's important. It just seems as though this is reflective of a movement that's going on in the country. You are absolutely right that the issues matter to people. You just have to add this in with an issue, and it looms pretty large because we're talking about some pretty pernicious allegations. This is young women, an older man in his 30s, and what his behavior was like. That's why it means so much to people, and it will come down to the voters because there's no other vetting. That's why the moral agency of politicians has become so important. That's why we were chasing, and you guys as well, to hear what the GOP leadership would say, what the president would say. And the silence was deafening, right, Joel? I mean, Trump never really delays talking about anything if he wants to. Here, he was quiet. Why do you think he was quiet so long?
Well, I think the facts had to come out, and you've had the development of some facts, you've had allegations, you've had responses. Some of the allegations are frivolous. I saw on CNN today there was a story about how Roy Moore first noticed his wife when she was 15 or 16. Well, that's just frivolous. He didn't marry her till 8 years later.
But who said? But why is it frivolous? Is it untrue?
It's completely frivolous. I mean, I met my wife when she was 17. Other people have met their wives when she... It makes no difference at all unless you're trying to use that to corroborate allegations that have nothing to do with that perfectly
But why are you
legal
making that leap?
And normal
Roy Moore wrote in his book that he noticed her.
Right.
I knew Kayla was going to be a special person in my life. Moore wrote about it when he first saw her when she was 15 years old. He wrote he began dating her when she was 23. A year before they married.
He wrote it in his book because it's completely uncontroversial, but CNN made a big news story out of it today in order to make it look like there was something sinister about meeting someone when she was young.
Isn't that the way you took it? And it's contextual that this is a pattern for this man, that he does take notice of women at that age. I mean, how is that frivolous?
It's not frivolous if you're judging his character, but it's frivolous in a legal sense, and you're accusing him of doing something that's illegal. And when presentation is made that these legal relationships are somehow related to something that he did which is illegal, then you're smearing the man essentially by lumping in his relationship with his wife, which as far as we know has been solid, 32 years, 4 kids, and I don't know how many grandkids, with relationships that happened when he was single and in this murky area that nobody really can prove.
I would be careful because you're drawing a lot of, and I know you guys like to do this, but you're drawing a lot of implications from something where they weren't said. This was just that, once again, he noticed a young woman. He thought something about her. He remembered it years later. He wound up marrying her. It is what it is. What you decide to make it into as instructive of, that's as much on the reader as it is anybody else. But why is all of this important? Because we're at a very sensitive time in terms of how we understand this behavior towards women and what we want to endorse and what we want to stop.